Hi, I'm Jimmy Anderson. I built some of these old cars you see here in the garage, and me and my wife have a pharmacy that we do, and the building the cars is just kind of a hobby. I like building them, so been building them since I've been probably 14, 15 years old with my dad and my uncle, and that's where it started from. Started out in cars, went to motorcycles, started racing motorcycles. Didn't heal too fast after a few crashes, so then I went to the fast boats. Then I started racing race catamarans. That got real expensive, so got out of the boats, got back into the cars again. So back into the cars. I think 2004, 2005, I started getting back into building cars. Met a friend of mine, Monty Rogers. I met him through our pharmacy, and I was building a couple cars at the time, and Monty come up, and he's a pharmacist. He's seen my cars, and he said, "Man, would you build me one of those cars?" And so, I mean, at that time I was building my own cars. I'd kind of build one here and there, and then I'd sell it and then build another one. Once I was done building it, didn't have anything to do to it, I thought, well, it's time to move on to something else. So I'd sell that one and then start on a new one. So to the right of me, I have a 1968 GTX that's a one-owner car. The gentleman brought it to me. He wanted it restored all original. I don't really do original, so he's seen some of the other cars I built, and then he finally just said, just do what you do. And so it does still have its original motor, original tranny, but it's set up so he can drive it and enjoy driving it. And it was a full restoration. The car was originally gold. I changed the gold a little bit just to lighten it up, to give it a more modern gold look instead of it was a lot darker gold when it was originally come from the factory. It's got all modern gauges in it, modern fuel injection. Stripes are actually painted on the car now, and they're not vinyl. Custom set of wheels. The wheels, have a friend that builds the wheels, Jason Rushforth, and sent him a picture of the original wheels, and then he sent me a set of 20s and 19s that looked like the original wheels. This car is actually probably in the best shape of all the cars that I've built when he brought it to me. Didn't need a lot of work. I did replace the quarters on it, but floorboards were in excellent shape, trunk was in excellent shape. This is a one-owner car. That is the original 440 that was in the car, it's original transmission. I did put a Dana 60 underneath it because we upped the horsepower on the 440. And it did have a 8 3/4 in it. We upped that to a Dana 60.
Cool.
Big brakes, 14-inch brakes all the way around it.
What are these gauges like then?
These are a set of Dakota digital. Got into motorcycles, started racing bikes. That's kind of where I learned the fabrication. I would build my own swing arms, I'd build my own wheelie bars, customize the frame. We used to, I don't really want to say cheat on the drag strip, but on the old Kawasaki LTDs, they had the round frames on them, so we would cut the front of the frames out, fill the front of the frames with lead, then we would weld the frames back in, and that would keep you from wheeling down the drag strip, and that way you could run a motorcycle without a wheelie bar and beat the guys with wheelie bars, and then they couldn't figure out why the heck you were out running them and you didn't have a wheelie bar. Then of course they started making street bikes that were as fast or faster than our all-out drag bikes, and then so I got into the fast street bikes. You know, I had the ZX10, ZX11, ZX12, ZX14, anything with the ZX, anything the insurance companies didn't like, that's what I wanted. Back to the right of me, I have a SS, a 1967 SS Camaro with a big block. This is the first car that I've ever mini-tubbed that was already done painted, which is really scary. So I cut the whole flooring out on the back, mini-tubbed it, put new inner wheel tubs in it. All new suspension, Detroit speed on the front, 4-link the rear. Put a 12-bolt rear in this one. Got a big block in it, fuel injected. I'll show you what this one looks like.
Now, once again, are these painted?
These are painted on.
Nice.
This thing loves race fuel.
Does it? It does.
And then I have a chassis back there that's going to be a 1946 Dodge truck that belonged to the gentleman's father that when he brought it to me. So he's just restoring it just to commemorate his father. So crashed a few motorcycles, got out of them, got into boats. My fastest boat was a 37-foot Spectre Cat with twin 525s in it with superchargers on it. And that boat probably run about 135, 137 miles an hour on the water. That's extremely fast for water. Obviously now they got boats that run 200 plus now, but for just an individual to have to putt around on the lake with. I was just into the boats probably, I think I had my Cat for about 5 years. We do the shootout every year at Lake of the Ozarks. We actually had a house down at Lake of the Ozarks, so we would do the shootout down there every year. And then there was a place up in by Nebraska that we used to go race on the Missouri River, I think is where it was at. And then it would be like a mile-long track. You'd get a mile to get going, and it would be another mile long after that. And, we would just kind of follow wherever somebody had a race that weekend. We'd drag the boat. And well, it started out as the Mercury Marine had, I believe they were called 525s or something like that. So they were 500 plus cubic inches. Then I went with, they weren't fast enough for me. So then I went with the Pro Chargers, put Pro Chargers on there, raced with them a year. The Pro Chargers and boats, motors weren't a real good match because a Pro Charger, on a boat, you hold them open for a long period of time. Pro Chargers just keep making boost and make boost. Well, that wasn't, my engines didn't really like that too much. So we just went to blowers on there, which I never did get into the turbos, which now they've got 1,500, 2,000 horsepower turbocharged Mercury Marine motors. Yeah, when I got out of it, they were starting to put turbos and stuff on boats, but I always just did superchargers. And then to the left of me, I have a 1970 Challenger convertible Hemi. This one has a 540 cubic inch, all aluminum Ray Barton Hemi in this one. All custom suspension. It's got Magnum Force front, 4-link rear, Dana 60 in it.
You know, that exhaust on there, it's so subtle. Like, if you're not really paying attention to it, you don't realize those are exhaust ports.
I've lowered this body 3.5 inches. So the original body line on this is right here. And then I lowered the body and then rolled, there's a whole rolled pan underneath this. So I've lowered the body about 3.5 inches, just so you don't see the pinch weld stuff on the car.
Oh, wow.
Every panel on this car has been definitely touched and reworked. Windshield's been laid back 1.5 inches, which was a whole nother issue with the top. Once I did that, I actually had to lower the back of the top by about 1 inch, which makes the top look like it's been chopped. And then the front fenders has all been lowered to match the body. Bumpers all moved, pushed in.
not just modern lights in this, but it's the actual tail lights out of a modern car.
Yes. So I bought a wrecked Hellcat. We cut the whole ass end out of the rear end out of the Hellcat and grafted them in here. This is actually off of the wrecked Hellcat that we had. So I had to bring the body up to make it fit the new gas cap. I like the ones when they drive them here and they say, yeah, this is pretty much a rust-free car. And then we end up replacing, 50%, 80% of the metal on the car because, yeah, it wasn't really rust-free. So I don't know if you can get a picture of this, but this is this car when it was brought to me.
Oh my God, is it really?
Mm-hmm. And then after I got all the rust cut off of it, I will show you what I actually end up starting with.
Is really any of this the actual car anymore? Almost?
That's the firewall. Firewall is completely, and that's pretty normal in convertibles, because when this car was found, the top was actually down, and there was not much left of the top, so water just got in there and just set.
Got it.
And so it just rots everything. So once I got done cutting all the rust away, that's what I started with.
Oh my gosh.
It usually takes me anywhere between 8 months and a year to finish one, depending on what motor and parts, if parts are readily available and stuff like that. Occasionally I'll have my daughter come over, clean the shop, or help me hold something, or like on Monty's truck, me and her spent a weekend actually just bending sheet metal to make the whole rear end of the truck. So it's just me. I do the body work, I do paint. I do not do the short blocks on the motor. I don't have a machine shop to do that, but all the body work, all the fabrication, all the paint, all that's me. I have friends in everywhere. I have friends that take care of my transmissions. I have friends that build my wheels for me. The hood here that we're looking at on the wall, it's actually off of a 1970 Charger that me and a friend went and picked up in Lincoln, Nebraska. We got up there, we drove, I don't know, however many hours, 6 hours up to go pick up this car. And we get up there and the pictures looked pretty good. We thought it was painted. It was actually a wrap. It was a race car. It was, pretty rough when we got it. We brought it back here. Took about a week to peel all the wrap off because it was adhered very well to the metal.
Wow.
So, but that one was a 1970 Charger that we sold down in Florida last year. And then the 1962 Ford truck. This is one that Monty Rogers owns that I built about 5 years ago. I had that truck, when he bought that truck to me, he bought it from a gentleman out in Kansas. He brought that truck to me on a trailer. It sat at my shop for 2 months because it was the ugliest truck I'd ever seen. And I told him, go find a Chevrolet or a Mopar and we'll build that, but I didn't want to do the Ford. So finally he kept on me, so I pulled the truck off of the trailer, finally got started on it, and then that was about a year later, that was the end result on it. And then the parts and everything you see are just parts out of cars that I've worked on. 1968 Dodge Charger. I built that one. Second car I built when I moved back to Kansas City. The history behind that car is that car was at Lake of the Ozarks. I lived at Lake of the Ozarks for years. I actually found this car behind a barn. I've known this car since I was 16 years old. I've seen it driving around town.
Oh, wow.
I looked for it, couldn't find it. I finally found it behind a barn. It was actually a 1970, and I turned it into a 68 because the 1970 was in such bad shape. So I had the parts to turn it into a 68, which, if people don't know, a 1970 Charger has a full bumper around the front, where the 68 just has a regular bumper, and the grill's a little bit different. But other than that, the car's the same. The taillights are a little different too. Other than that, the car's the same. The bumper was off the original car that's hanging up there.
Oh yeah, the where you have the picture at.
Yes. The 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner. It actually had a Hemi. It was not an original Hemi, but there was only, I believe, 3 of these actually ever produced. I believe, I could be wrong, I can't remember, but I believe it was one of 3 that was actually produced by Mopar, so we made a 4th one. Fully stocked refrigerator, so if you need something to drink, you need a drink here.
Oh, look at that.
So that's wonder how I stay up all night long building the cars. That's how I do it. Lots of sugar. Some of the other things, like the old barn tin that's on the walls. There was a barn here on the property. We pulled the barn down. I saved all the old tin, insulated it, and then hung the old tin up in here just to kind of give it an older shop look. Some of the pictures and stuff we've just bought over time. At car shows we went to, actually had people draw the cars that I built. The last picture of the show, I haven't got it hung yet. It's going up right there. Of the what the owner calls the Dumbo Charger. Since it has a hellephant in it and it was gray, he just figured he would call it Dumbo. The Dumbo Charger this year at World of Wheels, best of show.
Oh, your workbench is Hemi-powered.
Yes, it is. Just the other side of the shop, some more trophies and stuff that we've won at different car shows in the city. And then spare parts. That is a 1970 Super Bee, 440 Super Bee. And that's going to be the next one that comes out of the garage. And then on the lift behind me, I have a 1968 Charger with a hellephant motor that's 1 of 100. The hellephant was very, very tough to get a hold of. We had heard about it. We'd seen it. We didn't know if we was going to be able to get one. The gentleman I built the car for is ex-military, and I think he had a little bit of pull here and there, so he ended up calling Mopar 50 times a day. You know, I need this motor. I want this motor. I'm building a car. And then, so one day he was here. We was working on the body. Didn't even know what motor we were going to get for it. We was going to end up just putting just a regular Hemi in it. And Mopar called him on the phone and said, you've been chosen to buy one of these motors. So all excited, you know, who do I pay? Where do I take my money? So he was ready to get this motor. So he ended up getting the chance to bid to buy the motor. It took us about 1.5 years just to get the motor. He was, ironically, I think he was like number 68, 69, something like that on the list to get the motor, which was kind of cool because it went in a 68 Charger. He finally got it, and then he was so excited to pick it up. And then the day that it come in, he called me, and he was out of town on business, and he couldn't go pick it up. So I went and picked the motor up, and it was here when he got back in town, and I let him open the crate, and it was pretty neat. It was neat seeing it for the first time. That's a neat looking motor. The only thing we had to do to the motor when it got here was I had to change the oil pan on it, because the oil pan that was on it wouldn't fit in the suspension that we put in the car. It took us quite a while to put that motor in there, because obviously the car was already painted and done by the time we got the motor. So we didn't even know if the motor would even fit, if the firewall was going to be correct. We didn't know nobody knew anything about the motor. David actually called Mark Warman a couple times because he had the motor, but when we were doing it, he hadn't had his motor in the car yet neither, so there was just nobody that knew a whole lot about the motor when we got it. So it was kind of just a big guessing game. We got it, we put the transmission on it, put it down in there, and just crossed our fingers, hoped it fit properly. And it fit. Sounds good. Runs good. It's turned out pretty nice.
Well, Jimmy, is there anything you want to tell me about the underneath of this car?
Well, the underneath of this thing was a little bit of a challenge. So we got TTI had to specially make headers for this thing because nobody knew with the hellephant what it was going to take with that and the Magnum Force front suspension. So TTI made the headers for it. We put this Bowler 6-speed transmission in it. So we had to custom make a cross member for the Bowler transmission to rest on. All stainless steel exhaust all the way to the back. 4-link rear. It's got a Dana 60 in it, 325 gears. Coilovers front and rear. It's got a gas tank in it. Fuel pumps inside the gas tank. These are all Dakota Digitals. Used Dakota Digitals this time for it.
And I'm gonna bet if just anybody that don't know, if they look in here, they're probably gonna look at this like, oh wow, it's got the old dash still.
Got the old dash, yep.
Now is the whole, like the holes and all the whole dash part itself still kind of original, and just the gauges are different?
This is still original, all through here. So all the key actually, there actually is a key that goes in there because he's got a little car on the key that he liked. But the key is actually worthless now. This is actually all push button now. Everything push button.
Hey, just putting toggles in a car, that's got to be worth at least another 15-20% more because it's got toggles.
That's right.
You gotta. How long did this one take?
This one, if I would have had the motor, probably would have taken me just a little over a year. We waited 1.5 years for just the motor. The car was pretty much done by the time I got the motor. And that was kind of scary because I never do that. I always assemble the car, make sure everything fits, then I take it apart and paint it. Well, this one we didn't have that option. So I actually did all the body work and painted this car before we got the motor, and then just crossed our fingers that everything fit. We did have one little issue with the motor. Back on the supercharger, they have a cooler, a big aluminum cooler that goes from one side to the other to cool the supercharger. It didn't fit. So my option was recut the firewall, or we had a company make us a new one that was a shorter, and it fit a lot better. Okay. Changed every panel somehow to put my mark on it when I'm building the car. I try to make it mine. Just like the seats, for instance, in the car, it's all leather with suede inserts, but the seats in it, that's the way 1968 Charger seats originally looked, but we didn't want vinyl, so we went with the suede insert with the distressed leather, and the headliner actually on this one's actually suede too. A lot of people freak out because on the old Mopars, their stripes on the ass end of the car are not straight. Their stripes go to a V, the same V as what the trunk shows. And a lot of people, when I was painting this car, are you going to make the stripe on the rear a V shape? I said no. Make it straight.
I think it looks good straight. I guess I didn't know that they were always in a V like that.
Yeah, so what they used to do was, since the trunk is narrower here and wider in the middle, the original stripes went to a V shape out into here and then back, same way here. I just decided to keep them all straight.
Well, I think that's a good choice.
Nothing's vinyl, everything. I don't do any vinyl on my cars. I paint everything on.
Oh, so these stripes are painted on here.
They are painted.
And the elephant and all that stuff or whatever, the hellephant or whatever, this is all painted.
It's all painted.
Oh. See, I mean, not that I questioned it, but it was just one of those, I just didn't even think about it. Because everybody puts vinyl stripes on.
I paint it on, and then I bury it in the clear so you can't feel the stripes and stuff on it. And it's, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but this is a darker blue, and then the blue fades to a lighter blue as it goes down the elephant's face.
I mean, probably not with the light in here, it won't, but that's interesting. That sounds like a hellephant.
Sounds like a hellephant.
That's a hell of a sound.
Yeah, I mean, I like the old cars, but you know, I'm not much on the 15-inch rims, not much on the old red line tires that didn't handle very good. You know, the old cars were just back in the 70s. You know, they were all over the road. Then I like seeing the old bodies, but you can drive them. You know, they've got modern suspension, modern brakes, modern steering in them. And they handle like a brand new car. So, I mean, I think that's what I like about them the best. And I just like the looks of them. But don't get me wrong, I like the numbers matching stuff too. I think that's all good. It's just not my thing. You know, I like when I take one of my cars to a cruise, I just like seeing people's reactions. I like seeing the crowds come around them. You know, they're different. It's just something different that they usually don't see at the cruises. And that's probably what I like. I just like the people's reactions and stuff like that. When a child comes up and I see their parents, oh, don't touch, don't touch. I'll grab that child, open the door, jump in the car, jump in the seat, you know, let them sit in there. And it, you know, I think that's my biggest thing is just people's reactions to the car. My name is Jimmie Anderson, and I build these cars just because I love building them, and I enjoy working with my hands and seeing the turnout on them.
Now I know how the black mark's got on the